right. YouTube says I'm live. Another I promise a video is coming. An actual video is supposed to stream this week. Just been a confluence of all kinds of mischief, including today, though things wrapped up a little bit earlier. This one was one that I was aware of, just timing, which was we had somebody coming to do some work, and they had to do some painting and some scraping and stuff. And one of the places they had to paint and scrape is right where this natural light is, right here. So I couldn't be here, and so that kind of took me out of my element today. I've got some blog posts I figured we could look at, but I caught trying to do things, and this is one of the issues. There's something I was trying to work on. I've been messing around with this map. Messing around with this map on. I started off in a worldographer, and it's this over here. Whoop. And then I migrated it over to Affinity, where I kind of was working on it. I'm not super happy with the hills. I kind of like it. The style's okay. I'm not. I've let the little artistry I have kind of drift, so I'm trying to kind of get it back off and on. The style is sort of a very naive. Obviously, it's very naive, but it's also kind of based on what is it, like John Speed, based on John Speed kind of maps. And at first I had these kind of yellow highlighted. I did post this on the community tab on YouTube yesterday, I guess. But I was looking at those maps again, and I decided to tone down the hex outlines, which I may do a little bit different. I like this because it does highlight, it doesn't totally obscure the lines underneath, but I don't know if that's going to work. And I also am cognizant that I might end up ditching the color for black and white, or at least a black and white version. But I figure while it's on my brain, and before I dig into articles, I can do a couple things that I wanted to add with the coloring. And one was to put some kind of border areas and use that. So one of the things I liked in some of the John Speed maps, or at least the ones I could find that were in color, is they kind of had this really sort of rough coloring, and I just kind of kept that. Like, if you look here, and I don't know, I might change this because I think it's more of a town than a castle. Anyway, this castle, whatever, doesn't matter. Castle icon. And I like these really simple icons for villages and towns and things. So you get kind of there's not a good explanation for these symbols. But one of the things I found myself doing was there's one of the maps that it's decently large, so you can zoom in pretty well. It's part of, not complete, I think it's part of Nottinghamshire, so it includes things like Sherwood Forest, but Nottingham is on the very edge of the map, so you could see the town symbol, but where it says Nottingham, it's almost pretty much all cut off. You just said part of the N or NO was there, so it's really a little bit, but it's in color, and it shows, how was kind of just shading these in kind of roughly. So I like that rough look, and I was keeping it. And I sort of enjoy keeping that. So I noticed he did things like put color over the roads. So I really only have one main road in here running, so I thought I would put that up. He colors some of the things, like the way he colors the trees, just like this, I liked. So I kind of did that. He keeps grass just as empty, but I put the grass in there. And so for hills, I don't remember if he colors the hills or not, but I think he does. These, of course, are completely fantastic. I'm not sure how he would color them or how he would represent them on a map, so I just did that. And then the pyramid, I didn't color. Maybe I'll go back and color it. I don't know. And I didn't color the skull and crossbones either. I think I might redo that. I'm not super happy with it. I'm not even sure what it's supposed to mean. Is it supposed to be a lair? Is it supposed to be? I don't know. So I might ditch that for something else, or just get rid of it. Let's see. So I just wanted to, while I'm thinking about it, and then we'll switch over to blogs, I wanted to put some kind of border colors, I think. So I'm going to make I try to do pretty well with the layers and such. So I got a lot of layers here. I'm going to I have a shading Well, I have layers and then there's groups. There's things interact in interesting ways in Affinity. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a group. I'm going to use the pen tool. I'm going to use a brush that is a flat watercolor brush. I think this is just a built-in brush. I'm not doing anything super fancy. I think for, did I just do, you know what? I actually did something because I had something selected. It, you know what, just to, again, there are some oddities that happen sometimes depending on what you do. And I found myself, one of the unfortunate things I think is that I've noticed if you don't realize right away when you've done that, when you've had something selected that you didn't mean to, and you start mucking around with brushes or things, then you can easily goof something up and it can be more or less difficult to get it back. So I'm going to use a purplish color, I think, for this. And I think I'm going to, this will be for the, I mean, granted, it's kind of obvious, but I'm just going to I'm going to just go around the horn here. And we'll see how it works. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in this on stream, but you know, sometimes you got something on the brain and I just want to finish it. How's everybody's week doing, by the way? It's Friday. Happy Friday. It's really wonderful weather. I have not gotten out enough with the weather. All right, so I have this curves. I think I can, I don't need to shade the inside, but I think if I wanted to, right, it would, nope. Oh no, I did the wrong thing. See, I did the wrong thing again. Okay, yeah, that's good. All right, so I want to keep that blank. So what I want to do now is I want to keep the stroke. I want the stroke to be on the inside. And that's fine. I'm going to use the brush. I guess I forgot to change the brush. So that's that. Let's see. No, what did I put it right? No, I want it. Oh, here's the inside. Yep, like that. Now it does this thing. I got to try to find one. Something that I think it's a bug. It's a bug in Affinity. If you use, usually they'll have some, so it has to do with the fact that no matter what you do, because these brushes they kind of end on a, it's not even the tapering part, it's this front part here, I think. See how it clips or this taper, something happens. But the problem is even if you, so here it is, you have to use one of these special ones. So I need to use the closed shape one, which will then close that up. Hey, Terrence, you keep, not Terrence, sorry. wrong T. But keep expecting to wake up and see snow. Wow, is it that cold up there in the Canadas? You know what? Maybe I will have it go on both sides, actually. There we go. And then I might mess around with the opacity a bit. Maybe make it a little less opaque on this whole level as a whole. And I think I want to use, what is it? I want to use multiply maybe, and then we'll maybe back it down a bit, something like that. And if I get rid of it, oh, okay. Tristan says not cold, just been programmed not to expect snow until into May. Ah, it's actually quite nice. Yeah. Oh, yep. Yep, I hear you. It's been a beautiful spring today. Okay, so now I have the waist. So they're set up. Let's see. Is there anything? No, that's the wrong one. Do I want to make that bigger, smaller? How does that feel? You know what? I can go big, right? Maybe 8 point. Okay, I think that's good. And now I'm going to do another one, but I use a different color. So now I can make one that's basically the extents of this here. I think I'm going to have that there are two different ones. So this will be one up here. Well, I guess I'll do that first. It's easy. And I could have copied the one of the hexes that I have underneath, but you know, whatever. I don't want that color, but I'll do the brush part first. 8-point brush. And then, you know, I'm going to label these two. Waist, oops, wrong spelling, wastes, border. And then we're going to have on done border. And we're going to change this color for you. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Oh, I knew it. Didn't save my selection. There we go. Now I can change the color. What kind of color should we use for you? Oh, blue? No, oops. No. Thank you. And then we'll do the last one, which is the larger feature. So I'll make another layer. I actually don't have to. It'll make another one here. And we're going to go and then I'm just going to do like that. Do you think they claim the lake? I'm going to say they do. And I can adjust these. One nice thing about it being kind of a shape like this is I can adjust it later. If they claim half the lake, I mean, I put a cliff area. How do I want this to? Yeah, I think I want everything. All right, don't I want everything to multiply? Put it in there. And then this curve. Change the brush. Okay, I don't need to do that. Change it down to 8 points. And then what color? I don't have a green. Green color? All right. There we go. So we've got him here, and I could extend this, but I don't see the reason to. It's a small kind of thing. I figure this to me is a mining settlement. These here, this one larger, maybe, you know, they got some hills and some dales, and then we have the wastes down here, and I don't know what I'm going to do down there. All right, I just wanted to get that done. Tristan says this would be a great map for a zine where every issue focuses on a different area with adventure hooks. I mean, I'm not saying that's the long-term plan, but the idea kind of here, I might change this, but it was to make this a trifold kind of thing. So this would be the map for this. I don't know if this is for a trifold. It might be too much because I'm very much limited, obviously, in how much text I can put in. So not that there's a lot of, you know, I'm not, the idea of this pyramid, it's not so much as I'm not really trying to make it into a big dungeon thing, my very small dungeon, or, you know, maybe not even. But that's we'll see. This will be a test. And if this is too much, then maybe I could break it down, have this as kind of a overall thing. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, that was kind of the idea. That was kind of the idea. Okay. All right. I just wanted to do that. I got some blogs we can look at. Okay, what is this? So this one is called, I didn't get myself something to drink. So if I'm licking my lips a lot, it's because I'm thirsty and I don't have a drink. All right, this is from the Newt Young blog, and I got all these. These today come from the OSR Discord. This is called The Lost Art of Truth Telling. Lost Art of Truth Telling over at the Newt Young blog. I have not seen this blog before. Okay. 1 second to zoom in a bit. The Lost Art of Truth Telling. And here I will write a plain, a secret hidden since the days the sun rose in the west. Magic is the art of making what is true but unseen seen. Speak what you know to be true, and if it be so, your words will out. The truth may be contested by another who speaks it or by the world itself. One must declare how many HD they will wager before knowing if the truth they speak is contested. If another's truth contests yours, both speakers roll a d12, adding the amount of HD wagered to their roll. If the world itself contests the truth spoken, the speaker rolls a d12, adding the amount of HD wagered to their roll. The referee may roll a single die of any appropriate size as long as it's no larger than d100. The truth of the one who rolls higher endures. The speaker of an untruth loses all hit dice wagered and may not speak the truth again, for they have lost it. Should they make what was spoken true, they know the truth once more and regain half their lost HD. Hold on a minute. The speaker of untruth loses all the hit dice they wagered and may not speak the truth again, for they've lost it. Should they make what was spoken true? I see. Okay, I think I see. One may forsake the truth and choose to lie instead, wagering their lost hit dice. If these hit dice are lost again, they are lost forever. Now that's interesting. All right, so here we have some examples, which I think are good. Ooh, a few examples. A man in a verdant valley raises his staff towards a cleft between two hills and says, "A river springs here." The referee determines the world will not contest their truth, for a river weaves only a few feet underground. A trickle of water pours from the stones. Oh, that's cool. So here's another one. A man, 5 hit dice, in a gray desert, raises his staff towards a cleft in two hills and says, "A river springs here." The referee determines the world contests the truth, but there is an oasis a few miles to the east. The man wagers all 5 hit dice and rolls 6 plus 5. The referee rolls a d20 with a result of 15. The hills stare back unblinking as the man turns to dust. So that's interesting. So they wagered all their hit dice and they lost all their hit dice, so they're dead. A woman points towards a king upon a stallion and says, "He falls." No one nearby contests the truth, for they despise the king. So the referee determines the king falls off his horse. All right. This is interesting to me. I feel like that in a situation like this, if there is a target, that person at least gets an inherent resistance. Because I feel like there's what it's setting up here is for there to be basically if you speak the truth in the woods and no one's there to contest it. What happens? So you say something and the person's outside of audible range, but they're in visual range. So if the king is kind of in the distance or he's a few blocks away and you just say in a normal voice, "He falls," and no one's around because maybe you're in an inn. Okay, let's just get this to its logical kind of conclusion. You're in an inn with some kind of windows or whatever, a sheet, or you kind of peer through the sheet. You see a king walking down the street. So you say in a normal voice, and because there's all kinds of hubbub going on, nobody else can hear you, the king falls. Does the king not get a response? So here in this example, it seems like the king must not hear it because he would obviously contest he falls. So I really think this is an interesting system for a certain kind of magic. But I think when you are just like the world has something, I feel like people have something inherent. Maybe it's half their hit dice. Something, or it's just one hit die that they can't lose, something that you can't lose, because if it's just your kind of inherent protection of self, and then your own like what is it in the Matrix they call it when you have your own, when you jack into the Matrix, like Neo, once you've been freed, you jack in, you have, I forget what they call it, you basically have some idea of yourself, and so you load into the Matrix and you get that idea of yourself. I think that there should be some kind of inherent defense of that kind of idea of yourself. And the king's idea presumably is not, "I just fall off my horse," and there's nothing to make them fall. So I feel like they should get some kind of inherent defense. It maybe shouldn't be a lot given the wagering system, but I can't imagine that if the king could have stopped, that they wouldn't have, because why would they want to fall off the horse? Or why would they want to? Tristan says it seems like giving the players fortune-telling abilities to change the world around them. I mean, kind of. I bet it's. I think it's more magic than that, right? Because the person who says a river springs from the ground, it happens right away. It's not. I see in the future we will come across a spring tomorrow, and then they travel there. Though I suppose they could do that too, but it's literally you fall, something happens. So it's made in kind of a soothsayer kind of way, but it's not the future. I mean, you are making something true in the moment. Maybe you could use this for future fortune telling, which would be kind of cool too. But I feel like it's not. I feel like it's more immediate than fortune telling. It's like when you say a river flows here, like literally water comes out of the ground and you could use it. It's not. There's water here, so now you got to dig down and find it. Like a fortune teller might say, "Oh, there's water here," and then you're like, "Great, it's just a crack in the earth." And she says, "Ah, but you got to dig down and get it." Whereas this person's like, "There's water here," and literally then comes a spout of water, like out of the ground. Like at the end of Dragon Slayer, when the sorcerer or wizard, whoever, I forget his name, says like, "Boy, I wish I could have a horse," and then the horse literally is there. He's not saying like, "We'll find a horse in the next town." He's like, "I need a horse," and there's the horse. So let's look at the last one. A blue-robed person, 2 hit dice, looks up at the stars spread out across the sky and says that they fall. The referee determines the world can test the truth. The blue-robed one wagers 1 hit die and rolls 1 + 1. The referee rolls a d100 with a result of 1. The stars would fall to the earth if not for the naked giant, 18 hit dice, far to the north, who says, "The stars stay in the heavens where I placed them." The giant wagers 12 hit dice and rolls 13, 3 + 12. The stars stay in their places. The blue-robed one loses 1 and the truth they once knew until they can bring the stars down. This one doesn't work for me because it's not the same wager. It's 2 wagers. The stars did start to fall, and then presumably the giants saw them after they started to fall and then blocked them. I feel like doing that is another thing where it's like, haha, it's like you end up doing the seesaw thing. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I wished them down. I wished you up. I wished you down. And it's like one of those biggy wiggy, teensy weensy. If you've ever seen the classic, I think they've done it in multiple cartoons where somebody's got some kind of device. They discover these magic words, and one of them is biggy wiggy, which makes someone's big, and and there's another one, teensy weensy, that makes one small. And so there's all these misadventures as 2 opponents, and I don't remember if it's probably, like I said, I think it's probably been done multiple times, but whatever. Heckle and Jekyll, Tom and Jerry, Bugs Bunny and whomever, they run around going teensy weensy and then biggy wiggy in different situations, but they're just kind of undoing each other back and forth. And the comedy comes from the timing of which they're undoing them. And this has a little bit of that where it's a little bit goofy, like, oh, okay, I did this thing, but then somebody comes up a minute later because it takes the stars more than a minute to fall down towards the earth. So in that time, somebody sees the stars falling and says, "Nope, I don't want it," and does better than me. And then suddenly, even though I was successful in my truth, they did it. That also means that do I have to keep track of truths? Like if I say a river flows here, and then a day later someone says a river doesn't flow here and sends it back down, do I lose the hit dice retroactively? It seems a little, I don't know. I need to work on that. And also maybe it's just like once you say a truth, maybe someone has to say a different truth, like the stars fall past the sky to the other side, or I don't know what it would be. But maybe there's that you can't just undo it. Or maybe the other person has to be able to then challenge that. Like the blue robed one has some ability to say like, "Hey man, you're just undoing my truth." And I sense it. Much like the king, you've got there's some connection there where someone tries to undo your truth. You've done at least maybe for a certain amount of time, because otherwise the bookkeeping would just get insane. Or maybe until it happens, I don't know, would do something. Tristan says, "Seems like this is for a very specific type of campaign." I guess so. I mean, it's a neat thing, and I could definitely see it. You could plug this into kind of anything. I mean, yeah, it makes magic strong, very interesting and powerful, but in very situational ways. If you're asking for small, like you can really play around with, okay, I need small truth. I could do a lot of small truths, because the smaller the truth, presumably, the less likely anyone or the world is going to contest it. Like the spring, where you're in a valley already that's it's green, so there's water nearby or some source of water. So then you do it. So it's you're doing a little bit, but not a lot. Or you can go for something big, but the price is high. I mean, they don't talk about hit dice, but it seems like you can't. These hit dice are locked into these truths. So if you tell an untruth, you're going to lose. How many do you lose the hit die? And then you can't do it again. And then unless you make the truth something. So the person who wishes for the spring and doesn't get it, like a river flows here, doesn't get it, can then try to dig down, find a string, divert waters to do it, which is interesting because it adds, that's like an adventure kind of element there. Of course, the issue might be that you have a party full of people and one person who's playing, say, this truth sayer that goes around doing this or whatever, some kind of mage that does this, then is preoccupied with trying to get their truth. And maybe there's other things going on, and the rest of the party's like, we told you not to do that. Silly old man, we told you not to do it, so we don't want to help you do that, or whatever it is, right? So there's, it's interesting. So from that standpoint, as Trista said, yeah, it might be for a very specific type, but I could also see this being a really interesting type of magic or sub. Almost, it's, yeah, I don't know. This almost to me is like that divine kind of magic type stuff. Tristan asks, is the HD loss permanent? It is quasi-permanent. So when you speak an untruth, you lose all the HD you wagered, and you can't do it again. You can't even speak truths again. The only thing you can do is try to make what you spoke true, and you get half back. Or you can lie and wager the lost hit dice. If they're lost again, they're lost forever. So you kind of have some that are locked away. So in other words, if a river flows here and you wait your 4 hit dice and you wager 2 and it doesn't work, you lose 2. You could try to make a river flow there, you'll get 1 back. If you go and lie and say like, oh yeah, that I totally went out there, the pilgrims who are waiting for you, but they're, I don't know, behind a hill, so they don't see what you've done or not done. You're like, oh yeah, man, I totally did it. And you roll. If that works, you do get them back, but if you don't, then they're gone. Reverse of Wolves Upon the Coast boast, kind of. Actually, it's. I don't even know if I would say it's reverse. It's sort of just you're. In a way, it's like you are. It probably would work really well in that system because what you're doing is you're instead of making a boast to do the effect, you're boasting that the effect is done. So it'd be interesting to combine it almost with boosts, where you could try to say, like, someone says, like, oh, help us, the giant is fallen. I don't know how you would do it, but then you could do like, there's probably some way to compare it, but it might not work neatly because you don't want to say like, aha, I killed the giant already. The giant is dead. The giant's gone. And then you would roll this, and if you rolled, then the giant is gone, and you did it. But if you didn't roll, then you lost something that, I don't know. But it is definitely kind of Wolves Upon the Coast adjacent. Boasting and toasting, yeah. What's an interesting? It's a kind of an interesting thing. I think I could fiddle with how it works a little bit, and just I'd want to work out some of those details because I wouldn't want someone to be the kind of the inverted soothsayer going around just trying to undo people's truths so that they lose their hit dice even though they succeeded originally. But it definitely has some interesting applications. I like it. Interesting idea. Next up, from the, what is this? The Grinning Rat Substack. Doors in the Dungeon. Here we go, if you want to follow along. Okay. Doors in the dungeon. What makes a door? And moreover, why should we care? A few months ago, I wrote that the most important thing to know about a dungeon is its theme. I stand by that logic as it distills into many different aspects of the dungeon, such as monsters, history, environment, etc. But there's another thing that I would wager is as important, which are barriers. And by that, I mean doors. To be a little loose with the description, a door refers to any movable barrier that allows or disallows passage. Traditionally, in tabletop role-playing games, we tend to see doors in the following configurations. Plain doors. It's pretty much what it says on the tin. It's a door. It opens. It closes. It can be made out of wood, stone, metal, beads, on string, or whatever. We could do better than that, though, can't we? A plain door can have carvings that describe the dungeon's inhabitants or some historical event. They can be marked by ongoing situations in the dungeon, such as being charred or having messages scrawled on them. In short, a door is never just a door, except when it's ajar. Locked doors. Fundamentally, if we simplify a locked door to any movable barrier that bars exit or entry until some prerequisite is met, a locked door can also be a stuck door, a barred door, a magically warded door, a portcullis, etc. Once we open the definition to those potential other scenarios, we start to see the opportunities for doors that don't just require a key or an exercise in lockpicking. Secret doors. One of the trickier things to run in a dungeon is how a secret door is detected by the group. In a lot of games I've played, the door either goes completely unnoticed or is just given to the players via some passive ability. However, the trick to secret doors, in my experience, is to offer a strange description of something that acts a little like a little needle to prod the player's attentions. Saying something like there are scuff marks on the stone floor in front of the bookcase does a good job of highlighting something that would absolutely be noticed without outright giving the solution away. The key to secret doors, pun intended, is that you actually have to give the information up to the players. We'll talk about transference from GM to player in another article soon. Croco says, since there are thieves and knock spells, I haven't really seen any actual keys to lock doors much in dungeons. Yeah, I mean, originally there were no lock doors. They were all just stuck. Then eventually, of course, you get the locks. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. That's a good point about not having very many keys. I can only say in the dungeon for my intro adventure, I do have keys to the locked doors. But yeah, that's probably a good point. But often, the other factor is depending on your dungeon, right? If it's an old dungeon, kind of the underworld sort of dungeon, then the keys are probably long lost. It's one of those things like this dungeon's 1,000 years old, so you're not going to find the keychain hanging on a hook by the door anymore. Probably right by the entrance. If put your keys in the bowl by the door, by the entranceway, it's probably not there. So that's another reason why you can kind of get away with it. Whereas if you're in a dungeon that is a structure that kind of has inhabitants and they're the original type of inhabitants, like a castle, then you expect somebody to have keys to the gate and that sort of thing. Much like in, The Princess Bride, where famously they used the Chaos Cloak and the Wheelbarrow to get the, I don't know what his title was, Castellan Gatekeeper or whatever, to hand over the keys. Trapdoors. Lastly, and probably most controversial of the door types, are trapdoors. These barriers often have some sort of mechanism attached to them that harms or otherwise creates a setback for the players. Now, traps are a lot like secret doors in that the players actually need to know the clues before they can think to investigate it. And it makes sense to provide these clues freely, as a trap is often pretty noticeable if you were simply to open your eyes and look. I mean, that really depends on the kind of trap. Like a needle trap and a lock, I don't think is supposed to be super obvious. At least not to the unlearned, non-lock-picky person. In my opinion, traps shouldn't be incredibly difficult to disarm either. Unless you're playing a game where it is very particular, where it is a very particular skill assigned to a very particular class, looking at you, BX, you can offer the solution to players freely without any sort of check. The only cost will be time. How to actually use your doors. One of the most important decision points in mapping a dungeon as a GM is where separate rooms or encounters connect to one another. From a non-narrative perspective, the easiest connectors are doors, followed closely by hallways, but those are a whole different beast, and another future article. That means that anywhere you want rooms to connect, think about what kind of door would lead from one room to another. Would it make sense for a trap door to exist between the gathering room and the waste room and the goblin den? Probably not. Unless goblins are eager to do minor puzzles every time they need to take a leak. Similarly, think about when a door is supposed to be a vehicle for other information, such as murals, graffiti, or just a plain sign. Or material the door is made of, whether it's stone, wood, metal, or even crystal. Whatever you decide to do with your door, it should feed into the overall theme of the dungeon and should serve as an evocative challenge or detail about the place as a whole. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. That's great that you wrote about making doors cool and all, but I've got a game in 15 seconds and I need doors now. All right, and now they have a resource, which I'm going to guess goes to itch, and it does. Let's see, D100 doors is a reference. Kind of wouldn't mind a example page. Not a bad write-up on doors. Coco says, guess they're skeleton keys by now. Speaking of keys in old dungeons, I should have made that joke myself, but well done. Okay, my chair is creaking. I don't know if you can hear it, but it is. On to, I'm really ripping through these. If you guys have any talking points, questions, let me know. Don't wait for me. This one's called Quick Rules for Monster PCs in OD&D. This should be interesting. OD&D, if you recall, and I don't know if they're going to quote here. I think they are, but Gygax famously said, just work with your GM to make what you want to. And I think here it is. Other character types. There is no reason that players cannot be allowed to play as virtually anything, provided they begin relatively weak and work up to the top. I.e., a player wishing to be a dragon would have to begin as, let us say, a young one and progress upwards in the usual manner, steps being predetermined by the campaign referee. Kroko says, needs more effort to design the environment, but should make it more interactive. I think Caverns of Thracia are pretty good about that. Yes. I think interactivity is good. I actually did a blog article, it's a little bit, it's not super old, about what I thought was a pretty good breakdown of some different defenses and dungeons and kind of when, if you're planning to deploy them, kind of some guidelines where to deploy them. Basically looking at them like traps should be for not your everyday, much like what they say in that in the doors piece, but in the places you're traveling every day, you're probably not going to have traps because you're moving every day. And yeah, even if it's a 1 in 100 chance that you slip and fall and die to the pendulum trap, that's still too big an odds. So you'd probably have guards, things there. Locked doors are good because you can get in them for places that are more or less traveled, but have some kind of value, a higher value level than your main. So, the door to your master bedroom or where your valuables are would be locked. Probably not a trap because you still go in there often enough. And you don't want to just get goofed up with a trap. And then might also have guards. But then if you had, say, backdoor access, a secret door that you only use once in a while to escape, but it's important, but you don't want someone sneaking into you, but you can't afford to have somebody watching it all the time. Like, that's where you might put in a trap because you can't afford, as the master of whatever this place is, you can't spread your people to have guards everywhere. So you got to figure out where to put them. So you're going to put them in the obvious places. And then you might use traps in the non-obvious places, which also helps because you don't want to draw attention to the non-obvious place. If you have a secret escape route, you probably don't want to be positioning guards there because then it's not a secret anymore. But you might put a trap there because at the time you're going to use it, maybe you'll know, whatever. You might maybe even put some things around it, but that will be where the trap is because it's rarely used, and you want to make sure that no one comes by. It's maintain secrecy, but maintain some kind of protection. So you can think about when you look at a space or a structure of some kind, how those spaces are used functionally can help you determine where maybe they would put traps versus guards versus, locks, barring access. Okay. Somewhat famously, the passage above can be found. This is back to quick rules for monster PCs in OD&D. Somewhat famously, the passage above can be found at the end of the description of characters within the original edition of Dungeons & Dragons. For my own game of OD&D, I decided to embrace this passage. Who wouldn't want to play a dragon? As below, you will find my attempt at making the above passage into actual rules. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Monster characters. The referee should work with any players who wish to play as creatures normally classed as monsters. These level up as fighters and gain any abilities and weaknesses of the chosen creature. For every major ability, e.g. a breath weapon, gaze attack, the experience required to level up is doubled. Monster level limits. Monster characters may level up as high as a fighter of hit dice equal to the monster's listed hit dice. Characters cannot have a level limit of lower than 4th level. And then we have a note here. Any modifiers to a creature's hit dice are static and applied every level. E.g. a first level hobgoblin 1+1 hit dice has a 1+2 hit dice without constitutional modifiers. Second level hobgoblin has 2+1 hit dice without constitution modifiers. A bonus of +2 or more to hit dice is considered a major ability, quote unquote. Lesser level limits optional. Characters may be allowed to level up beyond their level limits, requiring double the usual amount of experience points per level. Oh, and that's it. I was kind of hoping there'd be some examples. I don't have. Yeah. I mean, it's a good attempt. I think I'd like to see that. This is one where I feel like someone got the blog post out, which maybe they needed to, but didn't. I feel like a little bit of fleshing out, maybe looking at a couple of examples might help clarify some things. Let's see. Let's see. So they level up as fighters, which makes sense because that's how monsters tend to level up, but I don't know if there is worth being some nuance there, maybe not. And gain any abilities, the weaknesses, that's fine, but And then for every major ability, yeah, I mean, this is where you get into, this is the kind of this is where the rubber meets the road, right? What is a major ability, and what do you do when you have some major abilities are really strong without any sort of limits, and some of them are more niche? Let me see if I have, hold on, do I have, I don't know, I got a whole bunch of file managers open, but do I have one? I don't know if I have do I have OD&D on hand? Because it might be, oh, that's Greyhawk. No. No. All right, give me a minute. I'm just curious. Where is my OD&D books? They're a little bit buried. Where is my drive-through RPG account? Hold on a minute. Let me pull this over here, because I did buy them, and I think I just need, right, we just need, well, no, we need two, right? We need Men in Magic. Let's see how easy or hard drive-through is going to make. Oh, they actually, never mind. They did it. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to, let's just download all the book 1, book 2, and book 3. Okay, book 2. For some reason, the order is book 1, book 2, book 3, and then book 1. Maybe they list them in terms of. All right, let's see here. So book 1, I got too many PDFs open too. And then what, book 2 is Monsters and Treasure? Yeah. All right, so we just need book 1 and book 2. Okay. All right, let's just suss this out. Croco says, I think in 3rd edition, Monster PC start with negative XP levels. I don't remember that. I remember, though maybe it amounts to the same thing. There was, in 3rd edition or 3.5, they had this character, I think it was the EL. It's like character level equivalent, something like that. So that if you were a Minotaur, it had I keep wanting to say ELA, though I don't know if it was E. I don't remember what it stood for. There was, experience level equivalent. Oh, yeah, I think that was it. So they had an ELA. So you'd say, oh, this has an ELA of 5. And that meant that it was a 5th, you had to have it was a 5th level equivalent. So if you were playing 5th level characters and you had a ELA 5 monster, you could start as ELA 5 monster. There was a supplement, which I have, but I don't have it here, which actually goes into the math of setting up progressions, much like that advice in OD&D, so that if you're starting with level 1, but you wanted to play an ELA 5 monster, you could find a way to make a level progression to take you from level 1 to that full level 5. And then you could take class levels and things beyond that. All right, let's just see here. What do we have in terms of Monsteros? We've got, so someone wants to be a dragon. Where are the dragons? Here we go. So Gygax says, you know what, start as a youngin'. Very young. So if we start as young, they've got some time on them. How many hit dice do they have? The number of dice is an indication of the size of the creature. Most will fall in the middle. But 20%, okay, 20%. All right, die. All right, but what is that? Okay. The number of dice is an indication of the size of the creature. Oh, there it is. All right, so let's say you're starting off, you want to be a red dragon. Classic red dragon. Okay? Means you get 9 hit dice. And in fact, you'd get 1 hit, right? You'd get 1 hit point per those hit dice. So a very young dragon has 9 hit dice, but they only have 9 hit points because each of those hit dice is worth 1. So the interesting thing here is that they're not gaining hit dice as they go up, but the hit dice are getting more powerful, which is really interesting because, right, their breath weapon goes from doing 9 damage, right? Red dragon, 9 damage. at level 1 to 50, what is it, 54 damage, hit point damage if they get to be very old. So the question is, if you wanted to be a red dragon character, how would you do that? The interesting thing about that hit dice, it's man, it really is kind of interesting because there are two ways you can look at it. One is that, and this is going to be, and this is the thing, is dragons, maybe we should do a different example because I feel like dragons are kind of special because they have this thing, instead of just giving them more hit dice, right? Oh, you get more hit dice. You keep the same hit dice become more valuable. So dragons are probably a really poor example because it would be like you would start off with 9 hit dice. Each of those hit dice would be worth 1 for your breath weapon, but you'd still have 9 hit dice, which is kind of crazy in OD&D for different things. So you'd want to start at 1, work your way to 9. And then maybe you'd have to maybe these would escalate at the same time. But then also the thing is, here is the years part. This is the interesting thing too, is, okay, you're playing an OD&D campaign, you want to play a dragon, you start off as young, you're 6 years old. But to get to I guess you're just not doing this. You're really going to get to I guess you'd go to adult. And you just have these be as kind of as levels. I don't know. And the progression is kind of interesting. Maybe you'd fast track to adult, and then after that, these are kind of past you. Let's look at another one that's maybe a little bit not so much. So the article had hobgoblins. So if we go to hobgoblins, these monsters large and fearless. Oh, they don't have we need the okay, so hobgoblins. So they're 1 plus 1. Is that 1 plus 1? Now 1 plus 1 or 2? Oh, gnolls. I see. Gnolls are 2. Hobgoblins are 1 plus 1. So that article made it sound like, I guess, that they're saying in their example that they could go up. Oh, I guess, yeah, monster characters may level as high as a fighter. Oh, a fighter. I see. Okay, so they don't have to go, because a hobgoblin is 1 plus 1. You're not stuck there. I see. Okay. It's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of gray areas there that probably could. I would, like I said, it'd be nice to see a example of something a little bit more complicated than a hobgoblin, which doesn't have any special abilities. But it's an interesting idea, and I hope this person continues on doing this, and I hope people do. I hope, because it would be great to have some rules. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone who played in those original games, the folks who are still with us, I've never seen any of their notes anyway on what those character progressions were. Croco, are you I don't know if you found the thing where Gygax is saying don't do it, but there's a lot of things at play when you get to first edition AD&D that change the approach to this kind of thing. Because yes, in the intro, he basically tries to dissuade folks from doing this kind of things. And I think there's a bunch of reasons for that. Some of it's genuine. Some of it I think is a little bit self-serving, because I think people will call it, I've called it this, and I know I'm not the only one, I'm certainly not the first one, that you get to AD&D and some of the advice is kind of, you're in kind of corporate Gary mode. You kind of have punk rock Gary, sort of garage, do DIY, sort of zine Gary in the 70s, where he's like, hey man, do it your way, and if it works for you, it's cool, and it's all good to me, and all our games are going to be vastly different. It was a while back. I don't know if Croco, if you were hip to the channel at that point, but there's a video where I read through some of these letters that Gygax had written to one of these wargaming, where he goes into the fact that, like, yeah, everyone's D&D is different. My D&D is different than Arnesen's D&D, and nobody's D&D should be the same, and blah blah blah. Right? It's like like everything, and acknowledging, yeah, the rules we put out were incomplete, and it's kind of like a toolkit. You do your own thing, and it's all great, and yeah, like punk rock, like just do it. But 1980, 79, 80, 81, AD&D's coming out, and things have changed. Things have changed. TSR, it's a big business now. It's a corporation, and the idea, and it's not just that. I think there were other things at play too, like wanting to kind of stand. In the 70s, the first wave, just take this toolkit and run with it, have fun. Organized play starts becoming a thing. These groups and everything, and doing the cons and doing tournaments. Like all these first modules were all tournament modules, and I don't even think it's a bad thing in the sense that, much like you have, what do they call it, Adventure League or the Adventures League, something like that, right? AL Adventures League. And part of the reason that works to any extent at all is because you have standardization. And in early days, Gary was just like, yeah, man, do whatever you want. Woo, it's all good. So if you go to 3 people's games, you're probably going to get 3 really different D&Ds. And at some point, they're like, we don't want to do this anymore. I mean, we want to get things straight. We want you to be able to go from one city to another city, or from a college to wherever. Or to go, you come from you're at school, you're playing, and you come to Gen Con to play, and it's pretty much the same game. Maybe the edges are tweaked, but it's the same. But I think on top of that, a much more corporate approach. So, there was, Croco. I think you have to go to 3rd edition or 3.5, and I've talked about it a couple times. I can't remember the name of the book, but there is a particular supplement. Oh, it's Savage Species. Let me look it up for you. Savage Species was the book that had rules for doing monstrous PCs in an organized way. The problem with Savage Species, apparently 3.5 or 3rd edition. Savage Species. The problem with Savage Species, I have the hard copy of this book. Obviously, I don't have the PDF. Is that it's complicated. It's like there's a lot of math involved, and they try to, it's kind of the inverse of what this blog article. The blog article is just like, oh yeah, major powers do this, but then we're not really going to, it's kind of, you got to kind of know it when you see it, if it's a major power or not, right? This book is like, no, we're going to give you the math. There's a lot of math, and we're going to give it to you. Croco says there might have been some before 30s. There might have been. This is the one that I remember. It's possible. This is probably the high watermark, I would say, for doing this sort of thing, but the math is kind of onerous. Not onerous. It's just a lot. I think ideally there'd be something that's maybe a little bit more crunch than the blog post, but less crunch than this one. And then, you got to hand tweak the numbers a little bit. This one's like you do all this calculations and bleep, blop, bloop. And I think you can do it. There's still some gray areas, I think, because there's always going to be that decision point where it's like, does it count as this or does it count as that with some of the powers? But it works. So cool idea, Ladder Earth. Hopefully there will be more. Here's something a little different for the Mystara lovers around. It's probably will be the last one, depending on how long it takes me to read through this. Bandit class for Mystara. From Vladar's blog, Bandit's class for and I put the link in the chat. Bandit class for Mystara. Another attempt at combining aspects of fighter and thief classes in some ways similar to previously covered Bounty Hunter is the Bandit class from Dragon Magazine 63. The most important part in converting this class for BECME/Rules Compendium is hit dice, same as clerics, +1. So D6 +1 hit dice, +1 hit points per level after 9th, instead of AD&D's D8 +1. Ability requirements, keep the 2 highest and most logical ones, strength and dexterity. Experience progression, the original one is quite unique, but roughly equals the thief class progression multiplied by 1.5. And then special abilities, mostly ported as is, correcting for the different dice between the 2 systems. So here we have, so that's kind of the I guess the general things they did. And so here are this Bandit class. So this would be for the Rules Compendium BECME system, which is slightly different than BX. And it obviously BX has a progression, but after a level, I don't know, 14 or so, you just kind of start. Is it 12? I don't remember what level. You just get incremental increases. Nothing happens. Obviously, BECME, which is what BX was originally supposed to have, has those extra books at the end of it that take you into higher levels and unlock new stuff that, for whatever reason, they never did with BX. But when they rebooted it with Frank Metzer and Beck, they finished it. Okay, so class ability requirements, strength and dex. these can be, when you're doing character creation, rolling dice, you can actually raise up. You actually can raise and lower your stats depending. And so you can enhance your strength and dex. You can sacrifice your wisdom. You need to have strength 12, dex 12. And then if you can get over 13 strength or dex, you get a +5 bonus. If you can get both 13 and strength and dex, you get plus 10%. Got to be neutral or chaotic. All missile weapons as far as equipment, but only one-handed melee weapons and shields. Armor allowed, chainmail or worse. Experience progression as a thief, but multiply it by 1.5. So basically 150% of thief. Hit points per level, 1d6 plus 1, and then plus 1 hit point per level after 9th. Attack rolls as a fighter, saving throws as a fighter, general skills as a fighter, weapon mastery as a fighter, magical items all allowed to fighters and thieves. I would reduce. I know this is probably one of the things I'm a stickler with classes. Is I think that the main archetypal classes, which would be fighter and wizard. I don't think anything should be better fightery or equal fightery as fighters, and nothing should be as wizardly as wizards. Even though, yes, they're getting less hit points per level, I just feel like their attack rolls should be slightly worse than a fighter. Saving throws as a fighter, it changed a little bit. I don't know. I might go whatever. They're like as a thief or something else. It's not a downgrade, but I would definitely do that. General skills as a fighter is okay. Weapon mastery, I would make that slightly probably worse. Again, I just feel like the fighter should be the apex of fighting, and everything else you're sacrificing, coming a little bit down from the apex to give you something more. And I know they're doing the hit points, but I feel like to me, you should never get to that peak of fighting ability, because even though you're doing less hit points, you're also getting special abilities, which the fighter doesn't get. The fighter should always be, to me, the peak. And I do not like classes that just roll out, oh, let's give all the fighter stuff, and and then we're gonna give them climb walls, hide, and all these, like, great, all this stuff, and you get to hit as well as a fighter, and the only cost is you're a little bit less hit points per level. No thanks. But that's that's a me thing. I think they're adapting something, so that's fine. So they get a lot of special abilities: climb walls, hide natural terrain, detect and remove pits, snares, and other traps set outdoors. Surprise, cover tracks, which has a bunch of stuff. Track, and looks like you can add some evasion. Croco says, with martial classes like scouts, bandits, barbarians, it's kind of hard to add unique abilities that are reasonable without resorting to giving various thief skills at a bonus or a penalty. Well, I think what you have to do, so I think what you need to do, I think if I was going to do something like this, right, where I'm going to have, to use your example, okay, so here's my take, and this will be probably the last thing here. We'll close the stream with my lukewarm take on this. I think what you have to do is you have to basically change the thief. That's where you have to start. The thief is too broad as it stands. So what I would do is I would scrap the thief, and I would have the burglar. And the burglar can do things in dungeons. So much like this bandit has this ability to detect and remove stuff, outdoor traps, that indoors then becomes burglary. So you have that. I would take away some things that I don't think are particularly burglary. Like sleight of hand is not, to me, really a burglary thing. If you wanted to give that to something else, you could. If you want to keep it with, I don't hate you if you want to keep it with a burglar type class. But you make them more focused. So burglars, dungeons, something like a scout, and I don't know, bandit, scout. There's gonna be more overlap there depending on how you want to do it. I don't even know that the bandit, in terms of removing pit snares and other things outside outdoors, I don't even see that really as a bandit skill. To me, that's a scout skill. Bandit, I don't see a bandit as being particularly skilled because they're not. I don't see the bandits as outdoors folk. Really, they do operate outdoors, but they're not like super sneaky. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you also got to be like, how do you envision a bandit? I envision bandits as the folks setting up roadblocks and unsanctioned tolls on the roads, and maybe they're ambushing you and doing that, but they're not like monkeying around so much with pits and snares. I don't know. Maybe they are. I mean, I guess it really, like I said, depends on you. But I might put that in the scout, or some other kind of outdoors person like a warden or kind of rangery type would be more like that. So then you kind of cut them up into their, or what you could have is have them be like, you have, like the fighter It's like, okay, the fighter is the best fightery thing. The thief gets kind of this broad spectrum. And then other classes, much like classes will take the fighter stuff and kind of give or take, you can kind of give some take stuff from the thief to get certain bonuses in certain niche situations. That's another way to do it. So you kind of keep the thief as a broad archetype, and then these other ones you're doing gives and takes to get slices of the thief's pie. Right. So the thief kind of has this broad set. With the thief, though, because they're kind of skill monkeys, I don't mind so much if you say like, oh, I'm a scout, so my move silently outdoors is a little bit better than the thief, right? But it's worse indoors. Like the thief can be that, if you think about it, like the thief is this center line, and you're like, oh, in certain niche situations, other classes can go up or down. I mean, that's the one thing I could see, and I've done that, I think, when I was working on some fighter kind of subclass type things, with like, oh, your missile weapons are slightly better, but your hand-to-hand is worse. Something like that. So like, I'm okay with that, where but not, if you're going across the board stuff, I think you gotta, the major archetype has to be tops, to me. That's my thinking anyway. But if you're keeping it as a sort of a baseline, then as long as there's dips to go with the rises, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the problem with the thieves to begin with. As Krakow says, that broad terms like bandit are hard to define in class terms, in their opinion. Yeah, and that was the problem with the thief, because when the thief originally came out in Greyhawk, which we've been arguing about since then, it was, hey, everybody's doing thief stuff. So now hide in shadows or move silently is just this classes thing, because that's what we're all doing, because that's kind of half of dungeon crawling is creeping around and doing this stuff. So why it's now sort of locked in a class when everyone should be that. And you can look at the bandit. The bandit's just a thief that's outdoors doing stuff, so then you don't need a class for it. So that's another thing. But they're taking one. I mean, this is the other thing, right? When you're TSR and then later wizards, right? You're and really even everybody, right? You're trying to sell stuff. You're trying to keep flow of. So what do? You have to make more classes, and eventually you start filling in gaps that exist, and then you end up making these kind of more kind of niche classes because people want more classes. So you start off with a fighter, and you end up with a ranger and a barbarian and whatever else. You start off with a cleric, and you end up with a druid and whatever. You start off with a wizard, and you end up with a necromancer and a blah 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 and a witch and a warlock and all this kind of stuff. Krakow says, yeah, I did something like that for a scout class, but I kind of want to get away from the thief skills. Thieves can have theirs, but if others have them, it kind of waters it all down. Right. Well, for a scout, like thieves don't have tracking, and they don't have any particular evasion thing, I don't think. So those are things you could give a scout. And then covering, I mean, yeah, the evasion and covering tracks, you could either do that as a combo one, that's something they have, and then some of their observational things. I could totally, because what a thief has, 4 skills? What move silently, hide in shadows, pickpocket, climb, and backstab, right? So they have 5. So the core to me of the thief are the moving, hiding. Well, I guess they all. Backstab, I would kind of remove that, or give it to everybody to do something. But anyway, they have 5, and then you could easily, or maybe not easily, but I think you could come up with 5 for scouts. So you could have, the tracking element, tracking, evasion, finding food and water in the wild, some kind of search, maybe, and then maybe even something for camping, like finding good spots to camp. So there you have 5, and they can modify different things. So, you've kind of got that going. But I feel like if you, like, I would take back, like a couple things I've been thinking about. Backstab's available to everybody, but it's a chaotic thing. You just don't backstab people. That's not that's not a law thing. It's a chaos thing. And then I think turning undead is something I think you could get to everybody and have it be a lawful thing. So lawful folks can turn undead. Chaotic people can backstab. And I didn't mean them as a balance, but just kind of works out that way. Because I was thinking like, ooh, maybe chaos people can do something else with undead. I don't know, something like that. And then you can modify every different thing. So if you have a holy symbol and you blah, 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 then you're better at the turning undead part. Just like if you're lightly armored and you have a short weapon, you're better at backstabbing people. So, so on and so forth. And I would be okay if then you had a class like the thief that said, hey, when you backstab, you roll better because it's a thiefly thing to do. I don't know. But there's some interesting things we could think about. All right, folks, I got to jet. Well, thanks for hanging out. Sorry it was impromptu again. Sorry, I'm behind on my video output. I will get back to it, but I appreciate you hanging out. Have a great Friday or whenever the rest of whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.